Joining us on the live link right now. Freddie, thanks for joining us this week.
Hey, Patrick, good to be with you today.
It's great to be with you as well. And Freddie, what we'll do first to start off, just to give people an idea of where this story is at, this is an article. It's up on our website right now, and I do encourage people to go check it out. It will give you a general overview of where things are at the moment, but we'll bring that up on screen so people can see it, and then we'll go through this. And I want to get your comment on this. It's kind of a very confusing and chaotic story, not least of all because of the chaotic and confusing nature of Donald Trump and all of the theatrics that just seem to be going with every single move that this guy does on his checkerboard. Okay, so here it is. Israel ceasefire. Notice you put Iran, Israel, not Israel, Iran, because, well, one of those two countries was begging for surrender, and it wasn't Iran. Finger on the trigger. That's the main point, folks. Finger on the trigger, and this is up here. General overview here, and you can kind of see where things are at. There's a lot of theatrics that came in here, Freddie, like Trump told the Israelis to turn their planes around because they were breaking the ceasefire in the morning, trying to unload the last lot of bombs on Tehran, and Trump said, no, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. To me, this is just all theatrics. You know, might be true, might not, but to me, it's kind of inconsequential in the larger scheme of things. And we have some of the official statements, which you have very kindly collated for us, Freddie, as well as just some of the key data points here. I think this is probably worth playing here. This is Donald Trump, basically kind of unhinged, really. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. He was caught here. This wasn't a hot mic. This was actual press coming out of the White House, getting on the Air Force Two, the official
Marine One, yeah.
Marine One, sorry, I called Air Force Two, the Chinook or whatever it is. I don't even want to use these terms. All of their airplanes and attack helicopters and bombs are named after Native American tribes, which I'm just kind of getting tired of. But anyway, let's listen to what Trump is saying here.
Believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, we might not be able to. I'm not sure if we have an audio on this or not, but I think we might be able to free up the audio here.
Believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Okay, look, I've never heard this. I've heard this guy say some crazy things, Freddie, but never heard him go full F-bomb, especially in front of a press corps. You know, hot mics. Okay, I've heard some stuff with Trump, but never in front of the press corps, and not at a time that's very, very consequential to U.S. geopolitically and to the world. So, first of all, I mean, I want to get your just general overview of where you think things are at. But just on this comment by Trump, Freddie, how do you read that in terms of like, what is there something going on behind the man or behind the scenes, or is this the situation? How do you read that?
Well, Patrick, there's a lot going on behind the scene, of course. If you just the ceasefire and the way it was brought out to the public, you know, with a post on Truth Social, you know, this is just a new way to announce a ceasefire. That's a new one to me, and especially being aware of what it takes actually to put together a ceasefire agreement. It's extremely compressed. It's a lengthy process, and then it's a back and forth with mediators. And of course, the spirit of the ceasefire is to have two countries prepared to stop firing at each other because of the cost, because of simply political desires. There's a lot of reason why a ceasefire can be called upon and agreed upon. But even though to put it together, it doesn't take 24 hours. We all know that. So this is obviously a show, and there's a little discussions that are taking place in between, of course, Israel and Donald Trump, and then on the other side with the Qatari, with the Iranians discussing and say, look, that was the last salvo barrage of missiles you sent. Now I think it's time to put an end to that, because Israel's is getting tired, Trump's is getting tired, and it's very escalatory in natures. And the knowledge the intelligence services have, what it's Israeli and the US, is very clear on the capabilities of Iran and the ability for them to launch for a long period of time a huge number of missiles, and not the one that we saw for the last 12 days of this war, but are missiles that are far more precise, far absolutely and almost undetectable, some very difficult to intercept. So it's a costly war, and I think Israel realized that at this stage, then they need to get out. They need to get out because we haven't seen it yet. We're starting to see some very interesting pictures of Tel Aviv and Beersheba and Haifa, and due to the censorship, as you know, it was very difficult to get a full pictures of the extent of damage that was caused by these Iranian strikes on the occupied Palestinian territories. So it's interesting. For me, I find it very interesting, but this reaction is really someone that is on edge, someone that is basically trying to get out of this mess, because it is a mess. And he's under a lot of pressure, not only from his own administrations, but from his base as well as for by the Israelis and the donor class that wants the job to be done. So can he be trusted? Was it enough? All these questions are kind of in the air, and the press want answers, and they can't get it. And the guy I think he's struggling to keep his head above the water. That's what we can see.
Yeah, just I think you're right. There's a political pressure on Trump domestically to get this right, to look good. He's trying to pass the big beautiful bill, so the neocons are leaning on him, the warmongers. There's a lot of pressure there. Plus, he has to do right for Israel first, because the U.S. government is Israel first. It's America second. So you have to do right for Israel before America. And Donald Trump is committed to Israel first. That's pretty clear. I don't think there's no debate at this point. And we'll play some clips from Steve Bannon and some other people in a moment, just to show how this is unfolded. But just to backtrack, Freddie, when the U.S. launched these attacks last weekend, and Seymour Hersh was right when he said it's happened on the weekend. So Trump said 14 days, Hersh said the weekend, and it was the weekend. So Seymour Hersh just basically rose up again as a credible source, very credible source again. So that's something to take note of, considering the Nord Stream. I don't want to get sidetracked on that, but what he said about the Nord Stream pipeline and why people should look at that seriously, the general narrative of the Nord Stream, I think Hersh makes a lot of sense. But putting that aside, these were really a symbolic attack. It seemed to me and other commentators that were looking at this without any, looking past the theatrics, that Trump really painted himself into a corner, and Israel dragged him into a corner, and plus his big mouth and all these, doing foreign policy on Truth Social and Twitter. It can cause a huge amount of problems for you, and it actually puts you into a corner. So he had to save face, and this looked like a face-saving airstrike, and it doesn't look like it achieved what he said it achieved. And I'll show you how that's falling apart today. But so it looked like a symbolic strike, and then the Iranians did a symbolic show of force against the U.S. base in Qatar, and just to demonstrate that they can reach out and touch Qatar. There could have been an implicit agreement between between the U.S., the Iranians especially, that, look, we need to go through and we need to do this, but, you know, it's going to be limited. This needs to happen. And if you, it's interesting, as far as I could see, Iran didn't really engage their air defenses, even though they knew that the attack might be coming on the weekend. And it's almost like it was a performative strike. It was a performative strike by the Israelis and by the Americans and by the Iranians in that case. So, and we're going to try to bring Freddie back. We've lost him, so I'm not sure where he went, but it might have been a connection issue. But we'll carry on and cover the story until we get Freddie back. But so that's what it seemed like to me and to a lot of other people. And so again, they averted. There was a lot of speculation that the U.S. might use a nuclear weapon, Israel might use a nuclear weapon. So at least on this stage, and that's the key here, this stage, this phase of the war, they're calling it the 12-day war, and that's just ridiculous. Okay, this was an opening gambit in what is potentially a much bigger conflict. Okay, it's an opening gambit in what is potentially a much bigger conflict. And it's not the 12-day war. That's just stupid. But you know, that was pushed out by the White House, and so it's interesting that Israel, the Israeli lobby, the White House wanted to, you know, kind of bracket this historic exchange. I mean, the Middle East hasn't seen a conventional state-on-state conflict like this for decades. And the intensity of it, the amount of, I don't know how to say, you know, in terms of missiles and so forth, an incredible amount of missiles and things like that were being exchanged, plus the level of sabotage, terrorist attacks by Israel using terrorist proxies inside Iran, all of that. So it's, you know, it's amazing that they're trying to basically characterize this as mission accomplished by the United States, and I just don't see that as credible at the moment. And it just leads us to believe, though there can't be any credible ceasefire that's brokered by the U.S. That's for starters. The other thing is Israel breaks every ceasefire. And the United States has used, and Israel has used ceasefires before, including Gaza, to rearm and then, you know, impose even more harsh and vicious attacks under the banner, under the guise or the cover of a ceasefire. That's already happened multiple times. So I just don't see this is credible at all. What I see, Freddie, is that they're setting the stage for future attacks. And when I say that, I'm going to bring this article up on stage now from our old friend Steve Witkoff. There he is, the Del Boy of diplomacy there. Israel's man in Washington, Steve Witkoff, in meltdown, lashes out as a leak, an intelligence leak in the U.S., but is reported in the New York Times and CNN today, shows that little damage was done to Iran's Fordow nuclear site. Witkoff went nuts, and he accused the leakers of treason. Okay, that's a bit rich coming from somebody that basically cavorts with the Israeli lobby in the middle of so-called negotiations at banquets in New York. I mean, it's a bit rich of this guy, but that's why I call him Israel's man in Washington, because he is. So he's basically saying, no, he's calling treason. He's pulling the T card, the treason word. Both CNN and the New York Times reported that the U.S. strike on Iran had only, quote, set back the Islamic Republic's nuclear program by months and in no way completely destroyed Iranian sites. So how I'm reading this, Freddie, is this opens the door for a future attack by Israel. They could say, oh, the U.S. didn't finish the job. We need to finish the job. And here we go. This is like, you remember the WWF, the fake wrestling, WWE? They have tag teams Whereas two guys, and it's just, they can just go on forever. Tag, you come in, you do something, tag. That's kind of what I see with Israel and the U.S. Look at these two clowns. I mean, this is a tag team, classic Trump style WWF. That's kind of what it's looking like now. I hope the Iranians don't fall for this, Fred. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think there are multiple scenarios at play here. There is no doubt in my mind that Trump is trying to wiggle out the pressure from the Israeli lobby and the donor class, the Adelson of the world, those that have really put money on Trump, as their favorite horses. And was not much of a gamble. They just wanted him to perform, and he has to deliver. He delivered a show. That's what he delivered. And he got caught by these DIA reports, which basically bring him back to the real world and saying, well, actually, what we are seeing on the grounds and what happens there, it's not as big as you claim it is. This is not total obliteration, to use Trump's term, which is a very strong wording in my views. So I think if he's trying to get out in terms of genuinely trying to say, well, look, I did what you asked me. I don't say pay me you for, but it's not far from me. At least I did what was intended or what we planned to do. But now you got your show. Everybody got excited. 12 days war. It costs billions to the taxpayers' money because to keep this entire armada on standby, nuclear standby, submarines, you name it, this is not a cheap show. I mean, we got a free show here, but it costs a lot of money to the U.S. taxpayers, that's for sure. How much you got for it? Entertainment, as usual, Hollywood. That's what you've been fed with. But the reality is far different. And it's, of course, the first analysis and the first reading when this report and the CNN report and then the New York Times and MSNBC and so on came out, literally lashing out at Trump and saying, don't claim victory. You need to go back, and work some more against Iran because, we didn't have enough for our money. And that's what it looks like. They're trying to bring him back the relevancy of that war and making sure that the U.S. is still on board. It's not going to wash his hands and go back to business as usual and leave Israel, kind of hanging around there with a massive defeat, a beating. Broadcasted live on television for 12 days. It's just hard to swallow for the Israelis, which not many are left in the Tel Aviv and other cities because they've all been caught in the Sinai desert, trying to flee the country.
We get that. We'll get to that story. That's an interesting one. Yeah, that's an interesting one. But go ahead, Freddie. I've got a few other things I want to share with you as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, so just a parenthesis here, but of course what we are saying is a game that has been played here. On one side, Israel is going to use what is its tools and its strength within the mainstream media in the United States. So it is, of course, CNN will going to be the first to come out with this report. It's a classified report. So how come CIA has access to classified report? Do they have agent there that is allowed to read? Is there a Keith at the CNN desk? We don't know. All we know is they have access to classified DIA reports. And they are able to look at them and say, well, it really looks like that nothing really happened at the third or the other sites. It was just a little scratch. Which I must be honest, if you have to look at the data, because of course the imagery, the satellite data is available out there on the open source intelligence, and it's really not a kind of a brainer to realize that if you look at the imagery prior to the incident, and then if you look at the imagery after the incident, you can see that, first of all, a lot of Iranian activity around these sites, a huge amount of trucks in and out of these sites, moving things around. So it seems like the Iranian knew that something was coming their way and that something very serious was about to happen. Was there back channel discussions between Iran and the United States as far as saying, you know, like, well, we're just going to go and launch something because we need to look good, but move your stuff. We're not really after you. We're not after Iran. We're just after these particular sites. It's not a war against Iran. And then it was a show. But to say that bombers, B-2 bombers, you know, drop some, you know, huge, large amount of bomb, you know, kilos and kilos of TNT on these things is just simply it's just not there on the picture. It's just all we can see. A lot of sands, a lot of traps and kind of holes that have been filled by earth. So to claim that it has been destroyed, you know, 80 meters below the ground, I don't think even the Iranians were able to do that on within the hours or two that follow the strikes, because you obviously have a separate network of communications, and it takes time to get, you know, the evaluations, the battle damage assessments from the Iranian side to say, well, you know, what happened here. From the Iranian side, it's quite clear that, yeah, it was a pretty hard hit, but you know, they play the game. I think what I see from the Iranians, especially over the past 24 hours, with the spokesman, you know, coming out and Bakay saying, oh, well, yeah, it was a massive destructions. Yeah, it really destroyed a lot. So I think there's been some kind of agreement between the Iranian and the US as far as to call it a day and say it was a big disaster and let Trump off the hook. That's what I'm saying right now, because for the spokesman of the Iranian government going to Al Jazeera and saying this was a massive, massive destruction, when clearly a few days before none of that was there and they were laughing it off. I think clearly it seems that they'll say, look, you supported us, we're going to support you. And the Israelis are left there hanging, upset, frustrated. And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, kind of Israel's kind of cut out of this this exchange.
They've been played, and they don't like it, and they're going to do everything they can to remind Trump, you know, who's running the show in the Congress, you know, and that's they don't spend money without to get their price, you know. So they want him on the leash, and they want him to bring back, and they want the U.S. taxpayers to pay for the show again, because it was such a great show. They felt like they need a part 2, maybe part 3, part 4, maybe make a TV series out of it. God knows.
Well, here's the latest episode of that series in The Hague. So Trump was, brave to go to The Hague, so close to the International Criminal Court. They could have just nabbed him there at the NATO summit. But you've put this video up on your X feed here, Freddie's X feed, Freddie_Ponton. Trump, that hit ended the war, said Trump. Here he is. Just take it with a pinch of salt if you have to. But here he is.
But had we not succeeded with that hit ended the war. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war. If we didn't take that out, they'd be fighting right now.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
If the Iranians do rebuild, would the United States...
If they rebuild?
Would the United States strike again? And I've also
Sure.
a question about
But
Russia.
I'm not going to have to worry about that. It's gone for years. It's very tough to rebuild because the whole thing is collapsed. In other words, inside, it's all collapsed. Nobody can get in to see it because it's collapsed. You can't go in to see a room that has, 10 million tons of rock in it. And the tunnels are totally collapsed.
But if they rebuild?
Well, they've already looked at the tunnels. This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military, and they're not being given credit for it because we have scum that's in this group, and not all of you are. You had some great reporters, but you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick. And what they've done is they're trying to make this unbelievable victory into something less. Now, even they admit that it was hit very hard, okay? But it wasn't hit hard. It was hit brutally, and it knocked it out. The original word that I use, I guess it got us in trouble because it's a strong word. It was obliteration. And you'll see that. And it's going to come out. Israel is doing a report on it now, I understand. and I was told that they said it was total obliteration. You know, they have guys that go in there after the hit, and they say it was total obliteration. But
So if the tunnels are collapsed and it collapsed inside, how could Israel have guys that go in there? Look, everything he's getting, Trump, is from Israel. And Israel does one thing you can just guarantee. They lie as they breathe. Everything they say publicly, from their military spokespeople to Netanyahu, is a lie. They are pathological liars. They lie as they speak sentences. They inject lies into every sentence. That's the record of Israel and Netanyahu. So Trump is taking it all, saying, nope, this is all true. Israel says this, so it must be true. Like Israel sends its inspectors in to check the damage.
The Mossad inspectors, you know, they won't stand by near the sites. We're in Iran, by the way, so but we're there. We're waiting for the explosions.
Yep.
BDA, we'll do it ourselves. Couple of
taking
pictures,
photos.
send
Yeah.
couple of goons, you know, down the ladder. It's full of rocks, can't get in the tunnel. It's obliterated. That's the Battle of Cesspant. Took 5 minutes, and then they took a taxi home to Israel. Look, it's entertainment. You know, people really need to realize that this entire show is entertainment, and that is Israel will try anything and will tell him anything to keep the United States military might, you know, on standby, on their toes, so they can use it whenever they want. Might be this time for Iran, maybe next time it's going to be for a little bit more strike on Lebanon, maybe go back to the, you know, down Yemen, you know, to sort it out a little bit. It's basically a pay-as-you-go kind of U.S. military army, and you use it whenever you want. And the reason why you can do that is because you're paying for it. And then a lot of corrupt politicians in Washington, D.C. are happy to take their money. They've been taking their money for a very long time. And that's really the game is at play. The game at play is Washington is under attack. Washington is corrupt. And this is basically what you're dealing with, because the truth is hard to say. It cannot surface. So they're happy to serve your story. And that's exactly what Trump has done in Brussels today. I mean, this is today, and he's telling you that.
The other thing, Fred, he's saying they're scum. He's calling the media scum for reporting this. Now, I was on board with the fake news thing because it was true. They were pumping out fake news. And, you know, when I was, you know, supporting this critique of the media that Trump had, because they were lying all the time with Russiagate. And that started in 2016 and just continued. So, but that's one thing to take that line with the press. And then he's also taking this anti-war message. That's why we all got on. A lot of people supported Trump. But it's another thing to be boasting about a war crime. This is it's illegal. It's unconstitutional by the U.S. law. It's against the UN Charter. It's in violation of every international law and norm to do a preemptive strike with zero evidence of any threat to the country of the United States. And they've gone and done it, and he wants credit for it. I'm sorry, but it doesn't work like that. And this is the thing. I think Trump is just completely in his own little world if he really thinks that that's, you know, a feasible route to make an argument on this. So I think he's completely out of his mind there. And I think we'll bring Steve Bannon. You've also shared this video as well on your feed, Fred, with Bannon here. We'll bring Bannon up on stage. Bannon has lucid moments. I do say quite often, I do enjoy when Steve weighs in. Yeah, he's got some funny ideas about China and stuff like that, but you know, he tends to call balls and strikes when it matters. So for that, he does get some of my respect. And in this case, he's been generally pretty much a sobering kind of, moderating force with Trump. I know he even intervened to try to talk to Trump before, not tell him not to do this. Trump did it anyway, of course. Bannon's under no illusions, but you know, we're dealing with gangsters here. Let's listen to what Steve has to say on this regarding the strikes. Oh, we'll come back to that video. We got the beach ball of the beach ball of death circulating there on that video.
Yeah, they don't like this one much. For some
Yeah.
reason, it's not playing nicely. It comes and it goes. But he makes a good case about, you know, his interpretations of the event and this ceasefire, and he explains basically how Israel got a beating and basically begging Trump, you know, to speak with the Iranians and the Qataris and try to come up with a solution to end the bleeding, because this is what it is. He talks about the huge destruction on the last day, because there was a lot of talk, you know, remember on the last day, or the Iranians have fired after the ceasefire, you know, like there was a deadline. So Trump sent a tweet or, you know, post on through socials, and that's your ceasefire, that's your agreement. There's no agreement. The only agreement that the Iranians talked about was that when Israel stopped firing at us, then we will ceasefire. That is the only agreement. This is not a document. This is a
Do you know
man
what this
words.
is? This is like, you know, in the Roman times, when, you know, Caesar would send his guy out and nail, or to the town crier or whatever, down to the forum, and then make a speech and then nail it to the wall, a piece of paper. The emperor has decreed. Caesar has spoken. I mean, this is like what it is.
It was the law. It was the law.
Yeah, it's like, and it can change like every hour, and you never know where the hell you are with this guy. And now he's kind of losing his rag. He's starting to swear now. Let me bring Brian Berletic up on screen here. Brian, a great longtime colleague, and just probably he's been on point as well as anybody on this whole farrago since it began. But he's saying he's warning against triumphalism over the U.S.-Israeli, quote, failed war on Iran. He said, despite apparent weakness exposed amid U.S.-Israeli war of aggression against Iran, the current, quote, ceasefire is not cause for celebration or complacency. He's basically saying these ceasefires in the past have been used to eliminate and assassinate the leadership of Hezbollah. He's giving examples here. And he's got a good point. They've done this with Soleimani. They've done fake peace negotiations and ceasefires. They've done it with Hezbollah. They've done it with Gaza. Wickoff himself pulled a fast one on Hamas by getting them to release a hostage for PR purposes. Elian Alexander, I think his name was, dual passport holder. And in return, he promised to open the blockade and allow aid and water and food in. And he lied, and they allowed nothing in. So this is what they do. This is what these shysters do with their so-called negotiations. Ukraine, the U.S. and Zelensky used Istanbul to launch a sneak attack on Russia and destroyed negotiations and got their, you know, PR victory, as it were. Iran, perfect example. Oman, 6th round of talks. We're very close to a deal. And then sneak attack by Israel. The rest is history. Here we are. These people can't be trusted at all. And see, Brian's laid this out very eloquently, very nicely. Strong argument here. And he said, France is actually involved in this one. Let's check this out. Look at that. Coming in the midst of a U.S. and French-led international efforts to broker a 3-week ceasefire with Hezbollah. You remember that? The move marks emphatic slap in the face for the Biden administration, which believed that had assurances from Netanyahu that he backed this temporary truce. So the French were involved in creating this fake negotiation. So they're all at it. The U.S. has little partners, don't they? That whether it's Israel, Ukraine, the French, the British, they bring them on, put on the little facade, and meanwhile the dirty business happens behind the scenes, and you know, no chance of any negotiations.
Just on that,
ahead,
Patrick, if I may interject, but I mean, the logic goes that way. For me, if the United States, Washington, D.C., has been subjected to heavy, relentless lobbying by AIPAC, by the donor class from Israel and others, why are we meant to believe that this does not occur in France, in Europe, in the European Parliament?
Oh, it definitely does.
Do you know, there's a logic to that for me, and I think this is really, when I see this kind of news, it really clearly shows France, of course, had interest in Lebanon. A lot of people speak French in Lebanon. We have a lot of Lebanese in France. Lovely people, absolutely adorable. So love Lebanese, love their food too, of course. But what we are saying here is not France. This is France-Israel interest coming together, putting together a story. And then on the other side of the Atlantic, they're just collecting basically the whatever's left of that story. So they're on the wrong end, if you will, of the plot, and that's exactly what's happening here today. But the difference is this time, Israel might almost ended up on the wrong side of it because there's just too much at stake. We're talking about a major effort here. And deception only works once, and that's what the Iranians say. They say, "Fool me once, and you're the bad guys. Fool me twice, and I'm the stupid one." That's exactly what it is. They understand that now the trust at negotiation table, whether you're Russian or whether you're Iranians, you're gonna have to take it with a pinch of salt, and making sure that your back lines and your front lines are secure, because when they're busy talking to you and having a coffee or whatever, or laughing with you at the table, pretending they're your friends, they are plotting to slaughter your children. It's just the credibility of the United States, the credibility of Trump on this is just it's just taken a huge batch at it. And Israel, no surprise, we can only expect that from these genocidal states. I'm sorry to say, but these criminals there needs to go. But for the United States, there's no need for the U.S. to do that. U.S. has such a power, such leverage to negotiate with any countries around the world if it does it intelligently, if it does it taking the other guys on the other side of the table considerations, national security, considerations, and so on. I think the United States could be such a great mediator, but it chooses the deception, the cheap version, because it has obligation to Israel, and that's really sad. And then, of course, we must start to question the big debate where it goes now, as far as us journalists, is to look at really what's going on, who are the key agent perturbateur, these agents that are really implanted, at the intelligence level with CIA director, John, what's his name already?
Ratcliffe.
Yeah, John Ratcliffe, and then Michael Kurilla, Michael Kurilla as well.
We'll get on to that. Hold that thought. We'll show some receipts on that, Fred. And you're absolutely right. They're so deeply embedded in CENTCOM, these Israeli actors, as well as in the CIA, and of course all over Trump's cabinet. So I mean, this government is captured. Donald Trump, his entire administration is captured, and it's a sock puppet for Israel, basically. And I'm gonna show this just to round out the broader strategic argument, Freddie. This is Ibrahim Majid. He's one of our colleagues. Of course, you're familiar with Ibrahim. He's based in Beirut, and he's very thoughtful. These are some of our colleagues on the ground in the region, and they know this situation very well. They understand the tempo and the rhythm. They know Israel extremely well, as you can imagine. And he's saying here, very important tweet, by the way, by Ibrahim Majid. This is up on my feed. He's saying, the war has just begun. The war has just begun. And this is how people need to look at this. Okay, this is what Ibrahim says. 12 days after the largest military confrontation the region has seen in decades, Trump announces a comprehensive ceasefire between the U.S., Israel, and Iran, with the end of the first round of the war. It's key. The first round of the war, he says, which is described as tactical on the surface, but strategic in essence. The outline of what might be called a balance of partial defeat is taking shape. Neither side has succeeded in achieving a decisive victory, but the major messages have been delivered. And he's saying here, I'll fast forward down to the main thesis here. The United States is seeking to establish an equation that gives Israel freedom of action. Read this, folks. freedom of action. That's what the United States is attempting to establish through these games, okay? Again, listen to the people in the region. A lot of Western pundits, they don't understand the Israeli mentality. And they also are naive to the U.S. long-range objectives and goals, okay? Even if limited over Iranian airspace, talking about Israel's access and ability to attack Iran, just as it did in Lebanon. In order to carry out new assassinations of military leaders, scientists, prevent the restoration of Iran's military capabilities, and obstruct the Iranian missile program. In the American mind, Iran is the last bastion before reaching China and containing Russia there through the Great Game. A new Iranian regime loyal to the United States means controlling the world for another 100 years. Now, whether that's true or not is a separate matter, but this is the way long-range Anglo-American strategic thinking works. And how do we know this? Because they've written books about it. Because they do papers, endless papers and conferences about it. They've been talking about this in Britain and the U.S. for the last 250 years. So, and you know, this is a good assessment. Obviously, there's a few more details in there. Would you generally agree with this, Fred?
Yeah, I think it's a very important, as I said, to push the analysis further than just what has been presented in the media. Even in the independent media, everybody tends to focus on the change of regime. And that's what I think I wrote in one of the pieces, is really we need to push that further to understand. The question is to change, for change of regime in Iran, but for what is the purpose? And I think that's what Ibrahim is trying to allude to, trying to say that there's a much bigger pictures attached to this. And this week we wrote about the FNRC, you know, the five-nation railway corridor, you know, coming into Tehran on the 25th of May, you know, literally basically weeks away from the strikes. And what we are saying is that the U.S. policies for the past, since after at least the 9/11 was always to come and destroy 7 countries, the last one being Iran, but Iran for what? For controlling the access, if you will, the corridors between Asia, West Asia, Eurasia, and Europe. So this is a strategic move that is, of course, motivated by economic gain and geopolitical gains. And it happens that Iran is at these intersections and is competing directly with these major corridors in between India and Europe, known as the IMEC, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, which obviously benefits a little bit Saudi Arabia, but mainly Israel as the main logistical hub. So I think that's what, if I read between the words, that's where Ibrahim is alluding to, is that let's not just stop at the change of regime, but the reason why actually the United States needs this regime change, which also, as you mentioned, has been in the Brooklyn literatures for some time, with the document which Path to Persia, you know, the option for a new American strategy towards Iran, a very important document. Go to page 74, for example, and you'll see exactly how the plan has been laid for a very long time.
Yes, and here's the piece here. Again, which Freddie has put together here, Iran-China Railway, the steel arteries of independence. A lot of people don't realize that for years, there's a railway project which is already being built between China and Iran and connecting up Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, and Iran with China and some of its major regions here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an absolute game changer. It's a game changer in terms of trade. And who loses? The maritime powers lose. The maritime powers lose. That's who loses. So we'll see some of the details there. You can see the video if you can get a look at that on screen, folks. just to give you an idea. Some of this is, I don't know if this is real or CGI rendering, but it's a mixture of real footage, I think, and CGI footage. But this is an ongoing project. This is real stuff, folks. The Belt and Road Initiative, land, sea, creating networks, creating corridors, and road and rail, okay, all these things combined in order to bypass, basically make it sanctions proof and bypass American and European ability to choke off and disrupt trade and enforce the waterways and so forth, as they have done for many, many years, and dominate markets and countries and regions. So this is the way to bypass all that. That's very much what this is all about. And Fred, yeah, this is the big picture. This is the big picture here.
Yes, geopoliticians look into it as a real geopolitical coup, because they come with a receipt. If you're going to move, I mean, if you look at the trade between Iran and China, it's mainly petrochemicals, downstreams, a lot of hydrocarbons, and to be able to move this away from the maritime lanes and to put it on trains and to deliver the goods, not in 30 days, but in 15 days, you cut your logistic costs by half. That's highly competitive. You avoid, any complication at sea. The Houthis might not like you and might just decide, if you're going to Haifa or any ports in Israel, we might just decide to get a go at you. So all these routes, bit of a trouble, cost a lot of money for insurance companies, a lot of money for the maritime industries. You put it on railway in friendly countries that are obviously very much interested in to be part or to be a kind of a path for the Belt and Road initiatives, and you come with a very powerful solutions, which in my view is probably the most powerful logistic solutions provided that links the West and Asia with the West, if you will, and start to really build, if you will, this control over what's entering into Eurasia. Right? And that's very important there, because of course you get the northern routes, you get after the things that links directly with Russia's and so on. So the railway seems to be revived as a viable, economical, environmentally friendly, if you will, solutions to move the good from one part of the world to the next. And this is an area that, historically speaking, had predominantly was under the influence of the United States, and that is a game changer. That is where the geopolitical coup is taking. And we really saw that this train arriving just on the outskirts of Tehran at the end of May. It's a real success for Iran, and I think that anyone that's looking at this, especially the United States, foreign policies, economists, the big brains behind that is looking at it and they say, how much can we take? In January the 1st, 2025, Indonesia became a full-fledged member of BRICS. That's 280 million people, right? America is what, 330 or 20? Mm-hmm. That's a huge country. It's a huge player. A lot of it, high level of educations, hardworking people. That's a big player that's already going to be on the side of the BRICS, working with Asia, working with European partners, great relationship with France, by the way. And, so these are countries that are going to play a role in the economies of the future. And these countries have said it very clearly. When they joined the BRICS, they're saying, we don't want this US hegemony. We don't want that US dollar to impose us on how we should trade. And of course, today, if you look in these trades and these capabilities and this volume of trading, the yuan is the favored currency. It's really, really dangerous. And I think that's what the discussion should be, is that why Iran is so important. Is it really the nuclear program, a nuclear civilian program, where the IAEA had with Israel to plot a story to get us to believe, or to get the world to believe, that they were about to get a bomb in a week, and strike Israel. Right? No, this is not the real story. That is the real story, the Iran-China Railway, the steel arteries of independence. Now you're starting to scratch in something that is very interesting. And when you dig deeper, you're going to understand where the US is going and why is it so on edge, because it's losing ground, and it's losing ground fast.
Yep. That's up at 21stCenturyWire.com as well. Very important. Goes into the archives with other great pieces and great research on the middle corridor as well, which Freddie has done. Now, we've just got a few minutes left, so we're going to want to touch on a couple of things. One of them is, you mentioned before about Israeli plants within the U.S. defense structure, like CENTCOM, for instance. We're going to show you one of those there. It's a gentleman by the name of Michael Carle. Michael Carle. That's a name that you want to know, ladies and gentlemen. That's a name that you want to pay attention to. Michael Carle. Let's bring him up on screen. And there's been a lot of people talking about this, including some of the big pundits as well, have caught on to this here. We'll bring this as Kurt Mills. We'll bring this up on stage. Kurt, pretty influential in terms of these types of conversations here. He's a notable CENTCOM commander, General Michael Carle, head of CENTCOM. In terms of the U.S. structure, is right there in the middle of all of this with Israel. His term is set to expire shortly. There has been considerable anxiety behind the scenes. He could push a hawkish maneuver before then. And here's a report here from the Israeli news. All Israeli news. Israel reportedly pushes for Iran strike before pro-Israel U.S. CENTCOM chief Carle retires. There he is. Michael Eric Carle, during a visit to Israel. So basically this guy basically is over in Israel every other week. He's right in there with Netanyahu. He's basically part of the Israeli military establishment. But he's the head of the U.S. CENTCOM, the head of the U.S. military establishment as well. And it's hard to find where the line is between these two militaries now. And this is where things get interesting. You remember Signalgate. Obviously, all the furor over that. And, of course, here's Bannon. We might play this. But he's saying the driving force is Carle and Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz is Donald Trump's former national security advisor, who was a congressman who is in the pocket of the Israeli lobby, 100% controlled by Israel, 100%. They pushed strikes months ago. The Yemen tied to Signalgate. That was all basically. So think of all the facade of these stories and then just understand what's behind it all. And behind it all is Israel. Let's see if we can hear what Bannon has to say here. Let me just double check, make sure the audio is active. Okay.
Let you go, and you're coming in from Brussels tonight. I know you're over there doing stuff to thwart the European Commission and the European Union. Good on you. You're the editor of American Conservative. President Trump, correct me if I'm wrong, and any interaction I've had publicly, he said time and again, and the Washington Post reports, CNN's reported, he actually told Netanyahu, "I want to finish. You got to finish this Gaza thing quickly, and no strike on Iran." Have you heard any feedback at all, or any of your sources that have said that President Trump has eased up on no military strike on Iran as he tries to negotiate this deal, sir?
No, the driving forces on a strike on Iran are Netanyahu, and if anyone remaining in the government really wants to do it, it is the Joint Chiefs Chairman, Mr. Carle, whose term is expiring. Carle was very much in coordination with the former National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. They wanted to do strikes months ago. Those were scuttled. There had been some talks that the Yemen strikes that themselves were controversial and got Waltz in trouble with Signalgate or a compromise. This is the driving force. The idea that Trump wants to do strikes, that is not on radar at all. So if there are strikes on the front burner right now, my suspicion is that they are Israel or Pentagon, and by Pentagon I mean permanent bureaucracy driven.
Okay, so Kurt Mills, head of the American Conservative. By the way, that's a good publication. Pat Buchanan, It's good. I'm glad that Kurt Mills is running that because that it has a great tradition, has a great pedigree, and it's good that somebody who is very switched on politically, like Kurt
Yep.
Mills, is in charge of that publication. That makes me extremely happy, knowing the tradition of Pat Buchanan and real, I would say, very authentic American conservatism that
Yeah.
publication represents, especially in terms of sane foreign policy. So I'm so pleased that he is the head of that magazine. But it's pretty obvious, Fred. You've got an Israeli plant in the head of the pretty much the head position in the Pentagon on these matters, and plus all sorts of off the record meetings. And I think the White House was supposed to brief this today. They're supposed. I think Thomas Massie said they canceled the briefing to Congress about the strikes on Iran. So the Trump administration doesn't have to report to Congress about an illegal war that's going to cause untold problems going down the road. Because how can anybody listen? You know, Russia's laughing right now because the whole basis of sanctions on Russia is that they, quote, launched a unprovoked war, even though it wasn't unprovoked, but that's the party line against Ukraine. Well, the U.S. is, Russia was doing a humanitarian intervention in the Donbass with the Minsk and the UN Security Resolution 2202. We can make that argument pretty solidly. I can steelman that argument. The U.S., what's their excuse for Iran? Oh, I think they've got a bomb. That's what the Netanyahu told me. And my buddy over here, who's this guy, Stephen Miller, he told me. And my golf caddy told me as well. And,
Yes.
and they have a bomb. And I don't care what the DNI said in the intelligence assessment in March, Tulsi Gabbard. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Neither does the CIA or the NSA. Or no. I've got better sources. They've got a bomb and we're going in. So that pretty much destroys the U.S. ability to uphold any standards in any of these other theaters in terms of what's right and what's wrong. Literally, the mask is off. Trump ripped off the mask and literally threw the mask off a cliff. It's never coming back. Never. The mask is gone.
It's gone, Patrick. It's gone, Patrick. You're absolutely right. And I think, there's no need to be a fly on the wall in the briefing rooms at the White House. I think, anyone that does a bit of digging will know the Mossad was in these briefing rooms for sure, and the assets in the United States. It's came out already. It's there. It's just, you're not going to find it promoted on article on Fox News, but this is what it is. You have a team of intelligence officers from Israel providing the briefings at the White House, and accompanied by different top senior briefer at the Pentagon, like Michael is exactly the same. These are the guys that retirees. They're going to have a cushy retirement, and Israel is going to put a nice little money offshore somewhere for these guys, and but just push that war and keep US involved, because it doesn't matter. It's taxpayers' money, US taxpayers' money. It's not us. We create the trouble. US picking up the bill. I mean, that's a beautiful world you were living in. And then, of course, there's. I wish we could say this is one of the only senior briefer at the White House, but there are other individuals also that are worth a lot of attentions as well because of their background. And as you said, they come from Congress. Why picking these guys from Congress, which are known to be, already under the influence of the AIPAC?
And the Senate, Marco Rubio, I'll throw him in there
Senate
as well. He's same thing. All IPAC owned and operated people from Congress. So we got a few minutes left. We're going to go just get through a couple of these key points. And here's another one. So White House monitoring possible Iranian sleeper cells in the U.S. There's tons of these reports, and all the CIA podcast tools, podcasters doing CIA disinformation and propaganda are all pushing this. So if you see anybody pushing this, whether it's on Fox, Newsmax, Glenn Beck, or all these podcasts, I won't name them, you know who they are, this is U.S. deep state and Israeli deep state propaganda. And the Israelis are feeding all of this to the United States, all of it. So that's where it's coming from. So they're saying, oh, Iran didn't win. They're so frustrated they're going to send in sleeper cells. You got to be kidding me. Did we learn nothing after the war on terror, folks? So that's one of them there. We'll drop that. So just to put a little kind of flyer up on that. Now, here's a potential worrying situation for a couple of countries. The first is Egypt. And this is the cradle up here. And so as the Israelis flee their promised land, the settlers flee the promised land, thousands of Israelis flood the Sinai Desert via the port of Eilat and into Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and raising alert levels in Egypt. So now Egypt's got to deal with Israeli refugees that basically won out. I guess not that strong connection with the land, being European settlers. As you can see, load up on the suntan lotion. They don't look like they're from the region, but that's how it goes. So that's one of them. Okay, but here's the one that really smarts. That's bad. But this one really smarts. Get a load of this. And I will say, there's an old saying, Freddie, which is what goes around comes around. And I can't feel sorry for this country, quite frankly, considering the role they played in allowing their island to act as an airstrip for the U.S., the Israelis, and the British to destroy Gaza, for starters. And this is the country of Cyprus, fellow EU country there, your EU brethren. So this is a report here. Cyprus, Chabad, inundated by thousands of Israelis trying to find ways home. So the Israelis have invaded Cyprus. They've invaded Cyprus. It's only about 70 odd miles from the Israeli coast there, from Lebanon and Israel. And that's where they rerouted a lot of flights because Ben Gurion Airport was shut down and so forth. And so there are rumors that they're buying up land in Cyprus. And the Cypriots, you just don't even try to complain. Don't try to complain. If this is coming your way, you deserve it because you allowed your island to be used as airstrip one to basically level Gaza, Cyprus. So that's all I can say. And this is not going to help the unification of Cyprus. Yep. If anybody has anything in their mind that they're going to, shore up this problem with Turkey, this is not going to help matters. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, there are some very, very, very good activists in Cyprus. I want to give them credit as well because they've done some good job and they really had a strong voice. And they were not happy to see all these guys coming up there. They came to the boats and telling these people they were not away. So it's like any countries, it's not because governments are moving with plans that are simply criminals in nature or abating crimes. That every citizen agree with that. I'll speak for myself as well in France, but it's the same. Is the problem is we have lost the control of our government. This accountability is the opportunity to be saying like, look. This is not what we want to do as a nation. This has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with humanity. It has to do with the fact that we are associating our name with a crime against humanity. Do we really want to be there? Because this is going to be a stamp on Cyprus for a very long time. And I feel really bad for those activists and journalists that have denounced these corporations. And it's really sad for Cyprus. They just simply didn't need that.
Yeah, it is. And, look, the Times of Israel, always look on the sidebar on the, left-hand side of your screen. You always see an extremely interesting story. And I'm going to click on this one. I'm not sure if they're going to give me the full live feed or not. But they're basically saying that, let me see if this is on the sort of, it's basically the live news feed on the Times of Israel, and there's a whole bunch of stories. The one I was looking at there that was featured was Qatar. So basically the gist of it is that they're oh my God, here, dairy, it's endless, Freddie. The amount of crazy claims by Trump. Dairy denies Trump's claim that Israeli sent agents to inspect a Fordo site after damage.
Yes.
The
I mean,
Israelis
you can't make this ass up, you know. I mean, it's just come
the,
on.
the Israelis are saying, "What the hell is Trump talking about?"
We
You
don't do
just
these
made it.
things, Trump. Stop. You're pushing too much. You know, we're gonna get caught.
It's too much. Anyway, they're
boy.
claiming because of the excitement over this is what the Trump and the Qataris are claiming that they're close to a deal in Gaza. Listen, I'm done with this. Oh, there's a deal around the corner. This is all BS, folks. Just if you haven't worked this out yet by now, it is all theatrics. It is all BS. Whatever Trump says, go to the bookie and bet the opposite is going to happen, and you will win regularly, and your winnings will be consistent. Bet against Trump. Short Donald Trump and whatever he says, because everything he says is literally misdirection every single time, because he doesn't do anything. As you said, it takes time to build ceasefire deals. It takes months. It takes years sometimes. And then it's going to break down, and contingency plans need to be baked in. And that all has to be agreed on. There's terms to ceasefires. There's terms to violations of ceasefires. That's the ceasefire terms are chapter 1. Terms of violations are chapter 2. Then there's a chapter 3 and 4. I mean, you're talking about, how many people does it take to glue that together? Like 50 or 100? 50 or 100 people. And how long does it take to glue it? Long time. Long time. Do you think the JCPOA happened overnight? No. That took a couple of years. And maybe a couple thousand people worked on that in total. So I mean, between Brussels, Tehran, Washington, London, and Moscow. So, like, who is Trump to think he can send Del Boy, Steve Witkoff, this Israeli asset, send him around? Hey guys, I'm just how's it going?
Governor.
All right, governor. He's like
All right,
David
governor.
Jason, fools and horses. That's Del Boy. He's the Del Boy of diplomacy. Steve Witkoff. That's not anything. Nothing is going to stick. It's all a joke. And you know what's crazy? The Democrats are basically bought by the lobby. They can't say anything. It's literally Thomas Massey, Ro Khanna, and that's it practically. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, Marjorie.
It's just there's a couple of them, and so we're in real trouble here. This could get a lot worse. And Ibrahim Majid said the war's just begun. I tend to agree with that. And there's big concerns here. Freddie, give us your final thoughts. We're going to wrap it up, but go ahead.
Yes, I think probably the only thing we left out of the conversation today was the massive scandal with the IAEA and Palantir and the Mosaic. The Mosaic's AI software, this minor report of uraniums, so you just need assumptions, you need a couple of preemptive moves and a couple of analytical data to just zero evidence is required, but you can go to the United Nations Security Council and ask basically a resolution to legalize an attack on a country if you believe, based on your social network and the social data and a couple of other, mind data, that maybe it is possible that Iran might have a nuclear weapon program, when there is tons of evidence that there is no nuclear weapon programs in that. So we left that out there, but there is this wonderful a report from Alistair Crook, which I've published because I think he's done a great job on that, and it's been absolutely consistent with his reporting. Great analysis of the Israeli press, great knowledge of the region. Someone absolutely that I follow on a regular basis because he's just probably one of the most knowledgeable diplomats, even if he's still a former diplomat. However, what I'm saying today is that it really requires more digging into Palantir, Peter Thiel. These are all people that satellites around the Trump administrations that have a lot to gain. We see hundreds of millions these people are getting from the US taxpayers' money, yet these people are involved very closely with Israeli intelligence services, and they are working alongside with the IAEA, which discreetly keep on investing, in this particular program, revamping their basically data system, their collection systems, and spending 22 out of 35 million last year on Iran just to come up with assumptions and minority reports. It's dangerous because we need a legal framework, something really that's going to surround this private military software companies that are intelligence gatherers, and making sure that they cannot be used as some kind of evidence to target a country at will. This is not about justifying or legalizing a strike just based on assumption. Where are we? This is not international law. These people needs to be completely, surrounded with a legal framework that is extremely strict. Otherwise, we're going to see more and more abuse. And IAEA is just one example. And I think Rafael Grossi should be ashamed of himself for what he did. Absolutely ashamed. He's now out there. People knows about it. He can come up on any networks and blames anybody he wants. He got caught. And we know it. And it's just the beginning, because I think there's far more than that. There's far more behind that rock.
Yeah, it's all in here up at 21stcenturywire.com. And yeah, Freddie, I forgot to table this topic before we left. I'm glad you rang the bell there and set the alarm on this, because there's a report there. So basically what you're saying, Freddie, is that the International Atomic Energy Agency spent money using Palantir and the Mosaic application to create some AI-generated, algorithm-generated prediction that somehow Iran was accelerating towards a bomb, and that action needed to be taken immediately. And this is all happening in the world of AI, but it doesn't necessarily reflect reality. And this triggered an international incident here. They issued this report that was then used to justify the Israeli unprovoked attack on Iran. That's kind of how it played out, isn't it, Fred?
Yes, we go back to the COVID-19 era with modeling, So it applies for pharmaceutical, for health. It applies for environmental modeling. You can basically have an AI system, as long as you control the data and the input and how it's been interpreted. You can pretty much, come up with whatever model that suits your narrative. And that's exactly what's happening here. The West is putting pressure on the IAEA, is asking the IAEA to come up with something that's going to justify an attack on sovereign countries. So it's algorithm. It is predictive. It is not evidence. It's not something that you can accept in court and come with your AI and say, oh, we believe that our minority report saying that they might be having a weapon in a week time. So I think we should kill them, or maybe just kill their children's, or maybe just nuke them. It's okay. This is Wonderland. This is gangsterism. This is not simply something acceptable, not at a diplomatic, not in any ways I can think of, So it's important we keep our eyes on what the IAEA is doing. And then, as I say in this report, we heard this morning that the Islamic Republic of Iran has decided to basically dump that bill, dump the agreement with the IAEA. They're done with it because they know exactly what these guys are all about. It's a shite show.
Yeah. It is. And, now they're going to accuse Iran of, hiding and they're trying to create the conditions to create suspicion, to reinforce future strikes against Iran, because this is about nuclear weapons. This is about regime change in Iran. It's about dominating that country and disrupting the broader development of Asia through the China-led Belt and Road initiative. We've laid it all out today, folks. Freddie's done a brilliant job laying this all out. All of the research, all of this information is up at 21stcenturywire.com right now. You can see, again, Alistair Crook is brilliant. And I'm so glad that he caught this, because nobody could pull this narrative together as clearly and succinctly as someone like an experienced diplomat like Alistair Crook, who I've had the great honor of sharing a panel with once in Moscow, and also meeting and speaking to him as well. His work is outstanding, and he's a leader. He's a thought leader right now on this and so many other topics. So thank you very much, Freddie, for showing us the way on some of these topics. I appreciate it. Take care, and keep an eye on Freddie and 21stcenturywire.com, our associate editor for global affairs. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot to unpack, folks, a lot to digest. We tried our best to put it into what we thought was going to be 60 minutes, but we ran over time but this is a very important topic. There's a lot at stake. I think that it's important that you guys are well informed on this, and we hope that's why you're tuning in to this program. That's probably why you tuned into this blockbuster episode of the Sunday Wire this past week. Mission accomplished. You can see Donald Trump flanked by all his top cabinet people, including that one over his right shoulder. Does that face look familiar? It should. We won't go into it. He's probably in witness protection right now. But anyway, this was a great episode. And guys, thanks for tuning in, making that a success. You can see that on Rumble. It's on YouTube as well, but it's getting a lot of views on Rumble and also on X. So that was a good success as well. Wednesdays and Sundays, where the Midweek Wire, the Sunday Wire, these two programs, we'll be adding more. We need your help to do that. So folks, if you're able to support us, donate, subscribe to 21wire.tv any way you can. It helps to help this platform stay buoyant, and it helps us to maintain and keep the work that we are doing going, and then adding, little by little, adding more content to our repertoire and being better on all of these topics for you and for the public, and then also managing to get on some additionally new platforms as well, which we're trying to develop in addition to all of the main ones that we're on: X, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, BitChute, Odyssey, and others, and Telegram as well. You can also subscribe to our Telegram channel. There's other content on there. And I'm on Substack as well, building a Substack channel there as well. So, but 21st Century Wire is the mothership. We hope that you can support us. Just go to 21stcenturywire.com. You'll see the donate button up at the top. That's where you can help. So we need your help now more than ever, folks. And again, the Sunday Wire archives are available there, and that's at the same time on Sundays every week. We will see about this Sunday. There might be a slight change this Sunday because there's a little bit of an issue with the live event that we're doing. We'll see if we can resolve that before Sunday. If not, we'll let you know, or just keep an eye on our social media feeds as well. So that's it. That's all we've got time for today, folks. This has been a great, great informative episode. I hope you guys take care. We'll see you on the weekend. In the meantime, tune in and follow us on our various social media feeds, and go to 21stcenturywire.com and do look, read, and share our content. Very important that you share. Even if you can't support us financially, you can support us by sharing our content right across the board on all these platforms. That helps massively. That helps massively to put our links on X, to put them on Facebook, and put them on other social media platforms as well. By the way, I'm on Instagram, 21wire_media, and we're on TikTok, 21wire_media on TikTok as well, putting out a lot of amazing shorts. So we need your help to keep the content flowing and to keep the information flowing for the public. So hope you can join us in that effort. That's all we got time for today. Again, I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. You guys have a good rest of the week, and hopefully we'll see you on the weekend, and definitely next week we'll be here firing away on all cylinders. Take care. All the best.
Y no podría ser la excepción. El partido Fuerza, 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 se vive hoy, se vive esta manifestación desde el corazón y las entrañas de un pueblo. Por eso hoy queremos recibir a ese líder, a ese caballero. You are the revolution that you've been waiting for. You are the revolution that you've been waiting for. You are the revolution that you've been waiting for. When you're tired of being just a commodity, you are the revolution. And when gaslit into another war, stand strong because you are the revolution.
You are the revolution.
You are the revolution. You are the revolution. You are the revolution that you've been waiting for. You are the revolution. You are the revolution. You are the revolution. They conspire against you, accuse you of terrorism, to steal your sovereignty. Hold fast, watch it collapse. Know that we still have the power. You are the revolution. They want to centralize, monopolize, control your thoughts. Breathe, go deep, go outside, put seeds in the ground. You are not alone. You are not alone. You are the revolution that you've been waiting for. You are the revolution that you've been waiting for. Alone. You are the revolution that you've been waiting for.
You are the revolution.
You are not alone. That you've been waiting for.
Oh, hi. Is this a trend to the revolution?
Why, yes, my lady. And you're right on time.
Raise it.